Greetings, everyone. I'm Stephen Neely. I'm your co-host for the virtual Dalcroze meetup. This is meetup number, what number is it? I should have peeked. 44. That's crazy. This is meetup number 44, which means after tonight, we'll have 44 archived hours of really great discussion about all things Dalcroze and pedagogy and in the schools and in the studio and just all sorts of edges of it. And we're really happy to have everybody with us. We're starting with a smaller group tonight, which is perfectly fine. We're really excited to be with the group that we have. And we also know that a bunch of people watch this after the fact. So, so welcome to our crowd in the room. Our tradition, if you've been to a prior meetup or watched any of the archives, is to go into a quick breakout room and introduce ourselves and tell where are we from. Sorry, my tea is boiling in the background. Where are we from? Who do we teach? And I don't know, do we have a third thing that we say? Is that just the two things? I think it's just maybe the two. So where are you located and who do you work with, or who do you wish you worked with, or what sort of work, what sort of stuff do you like to do? So maybe we'll just take a second with the small group and we can say, I'm Stephen Neely. I teach at Carnegie Mellon. I spend most of my time with the 18 to 25-year-old crowd, mostly music performance majors. I'm the one dedicated full-time Eurythmics teacher at Carnegie Mellon School of Music in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I hand it off to Nicole.
Hello, my name's Nicole, and I'm going to be a senior at Carnegie Mellon. I'm one of Dr. Neely's students, and I play the euphonium, and I also focus on feminist musicology, and I am coming from New York right now.
Choose someone new, Nicole.
Jonathan.
Hey, I'm Jonathan. I'm also one of Dr. Neely's students. I'm currently in Pittsburgh right now, but I'm originally from Maryland. I play cello. Yeah, I guess that's it. Laura.
Oh, okay. I'm Laura. So I was born in Taiwan, but I live in France more than, 30 years now. So I have studied piano in France, in Paris, in Geneva, and in Brussels. And I have also studied Dalcroze, but more for myself, and mostly in Europe. So my students, these 2 last years, young people. Before I was most with a little bit with like Stefan. Yeah. Now it's younger.
Very good. Laura, do you want to nominate someone else?
I don't see other people.
But you don't see the names? Then I'll help you. Alice, can you say hi? Alice, you're muted. Let's try again.
Okay, is that better? Can
Yes.
You hear me? Excellent. Okay, thanks. And it's good to see you. I am, this is our summer holidays. I've retired from the public schools where I used to teach 4th and 5th grade instrumental music. And even though that wasn't my real love in terms of Dalcroze, I often could use Dalcroze exercises and games. And it was great for helping them develop their sense of ensemble. This coming year, I'm going to be teaching at a school called the Crowden School of Music in Berkeley, where they very much appreciate Dalcroze, but are having trouble finding teachers. Eric, I forget his last name, is leaving the Bay Area. So
that Eric Barnhill.
That's right, Eric Barnhill, thank you. And he did a great job, and before him, they've had some marvelous teachers, so it'll be a hard act to follow. But in any case, I'll be teaching the children, the age group I'm most excited about, which is 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. So I'm looking forward to that. That will just be Saturday mornings, and with the possibility of teaching group piano lessons to beginners. So that's my, that will be a couple of afternoons a week. Yeah, so that's what I'm up to now.
Very good, very good. Just, I mean, we should probably say it at some other point as well, but just because you mentioned that age group, I encourage everybody to subscribe to and listen to every episode of the new Dalcrozian. And they talk about all sorts of ages, but Anthony Molinaro, who is one of the co-hosts of that, he specializes with the little ones, and he's outstanding. And it's just, every one of those episodes is interesting for really all ages. So the new Dalcrozian podcast, you can find it on any of the streaming services. And there are dear friends,
Also,
Katie
this
and
is
Lauren.
this is the Anthony fan club here today. Anthony also has a great Substack that he just started. I think it's called, I'll look up what it's called and I'll put it in there. But if you
We'll put
prefer
it
to
in the
get
chat.
information in written form, it also exists that way.
Yeah, so just in case you don't know, Substack is kind of like the newest version of what like a newsletter. So Anthony sends out a written kind of newsletter every week, and it's a lot of lesson planning ideas and just kinds of the things that he's been playing with. So if you so we gladly encourage everybody to check out the new Dalcrozian with Lauren Hodgson and Anthony Molinaro, and then Anthony has his Substack, which we'll put it in the chat. Very good. Who we got left? Danielle.
Hi, everybody. Danielle, coming to you from Westchester County, just north of the city. My age groups are basically from 3 to about 14. I teach at Hoff-Barthelson Music School in Scarsdale, rhythmics classes for young children, and then a K through 8 progressive independent arts-based private school. And I would have said I'm a children's choral conductor, but like choirs are like this, and even this summer, I'm doing a summer arts program at Hoff-Barthelson, and they're masked, and I started remasking. So, choir still isn't really back. I also, my real training and my undergrad instrument was organ. So like I'm a pretend pianist, but I'm learning and I'm here to learn.
That's funny. I bet as an organist, you're a lot less of a pretend pianist than some of the rest of us. But but we're really happy to have you back and to have you here.
Thank you.
Leslie Upchurch, you want to introduce yourself? We actually already mentioned your name once today, so right before you got here. But unmute and tell us where are you and who do you teach?
I'm in Pittsburgh right now teaching with Dr. Neely at the Marta Sanchez Dalcroze Training Center. So in the summer, I teach adults only in terms of groups. I don't have any children, but because I also do the Lucy Moses School, Dalcroze School training. But during the year, I always joke, cradle to grave. I start with like 18 months, and people are pushing to get their kids in when they're younger. And then I've had students as old as 94 in my senior classes. The pandemic has been the worst on the senior classes. But overall things are still going along. I do a little group piano, some piano lessons also, but primarily Dalcroze stuff.
Very good. And Veronica.
Hi, everybody. I am currently in California visiting my family, but I live in the Boston area. And I play the flute, and I teach flute and piano to kids and adults. And I also teach a lot of Dalcroze classes to kids ages 3 to 12-ish, 13-ish. They're getting older.
Look at us. What a nice crowd of people. Thanks everybody for showing up and for saying a couple words about yourself. It's fun to just kind of know who's in the room and be reminded. On our, Veronica, do you want to make the first announcement or?
Sure. So Stephen Moore is teaching a masterclass very soon, this weekend, in fact. So July 23rd or 24th. We're going to try something new because Stephen has invited some folks from their training center to come live. And so there'll be people online and people in the classroom. And so we'll have like a hybrid model. Extra challenge for Stephen Moore to teach. But I think it'll be a really interesting thing for all of us to experience. And then maybe we can discuss Like, how did that format go? And I thought his questions were really thought provoking. So I'm just going to share them. He wants to talk about nuance in 2 and in 3. And he said, what does it mean to be in 2 in terms of body, mind, and spirit? What does it mean to be in 3 in terms of body, mind, and spirit? What happens when those worlds collide? And I just really appreciate the holistic nature of that, right? Like, you can imagine a Dalcroze musicianship teacher who's like, we're going to study 2 against 3. And like, there's a lot of intellectual understanding you could do, and you could feel it in your body. But I thought the question about like incorporating the spirit, like, I'm curious what that means. So I'm excited to find out. And then Stephen, do you want to say anything more about?
I'll just say that Dr. Stephen Moore, it's funny that we've got 2 Stevens, both associated with Carnegie Mellon, but Stephen Moore is a diplôme supérieur. He's a concert pianist. He's a jazz pianist. He's a PhD in music theory. He's an all-around brilliant dude, and just so thoughtful in the way he delivers his message and the things that he wants to talk about. So he's really specific, and he's really he'll even joke that his big word is this word nuance, and he just loves to just sort of like talk about it and point to it. And so I'm really happy that that's one of the ways that he's characterizing this masterclass. So we're really thrilled to feature him, and we're excited to kind of play around with half the group in the room with Stephen and half the group on the Zoom, and hopefully everybody participating. So if you haven't registered for that masterclass, we encourage you to try to get in so that you can be part of the room live this Saturday. And if you catch it after the fact, you can still register and just watch the recording. So very good. Yeah, Leslie.
I mean, I would highly recommend it. Like, whenever you're in the class with Stephen, it's so detailed, but then it starts to permeate other aspects of your musicianship. Like at the moment you're thinking, I don't think I could ever think about that when I was playing because it's so detailed. But then you do it starts to get in there. It's just really fascinating.
Yeah, he's a good one. I tell you what, it's the Marta Sanchez Dalcroze Training Center has just entered our 2nd week of 3. This is our 47th summer of Dalcroze training. Marta Sanchez began the training center in 1967, and the first couple years they went like every other year or something. So this is our 47th summer. The last 2 years we were online, and so it's just been a while since I sat in on Leslie and Stephen, and Nicole Brockman teaches with us, and Sylvia Contreras from Chile teaches with us. And it just feels like it's been a long time since I sat in on any of their classes. And I've gone out of my way to really get in everybody's classes so far this last week. And I'm just blown away by how freaking talented everybody is. They're so good. And so if you haven't worked with Stephen Moore, you'll enjoy meeting him. And truly, I'm pretty sure that anybody who takes the class will then be like, how do I get to Carnegie Mellon? So it's very self-serving that we've asked him to do this one. All right, well, I think those are the big announcements. And so I think we're ready for tonight. Our normal format is to try to line up 2 or 3 and sometimes 4 people to just do little bits each. And some of that is just that we think it's easier to get people to say yes, and without it having to be a massive presentation. And some of it is just that it's really nice to have multiple things to talk about. But today we get to feature Laura Liu, who lives in France, but is from Taiwan, and introduced herself just a little bit ago, who has a slightly longer form presentation. So Laura, the floor is yours. And then we hope that we'll have a nice amount of time that we can discuss and ask questions and talk with you about what you present. So, Laura Liu.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. Well, I want to start with how can I say? So Jacques Dalcroze said our first instrument is our body, ourselves. And so in that regard, our second instrument is the instrument we play. If you are pianist, we play piano. If you are cellist, that will be the cello. And what connects us from our first instrument to the second instrument actually is our hands and fingers. Yeah, and our hands and fingers is an extremity of our body. So it belongs to our first instrument, but we use this part of ourselves to contact the keyboard, the cello, or whatever instrument. Then there was a woman, a French woman in late 19th century, early 20th, Marie Jaël, who has an understanding about the importance to educate the hands, and who has developed a series of exercise, both without piano and with piano, because she was pianist. So if you want, we can start already with one exercise. I have prepared actually 3. So the first one and the second one I give not immediately, but very soon to even to beginner students. The third one I will present and we will do something with, but actually it's not something I do with beginners. It normally requires more experience, more ability already. So are you ready? Yeah. If you have your piano or your instrument close to you, I will invite you to play something. You can mute your connection and you play, for example, one phrase of a piece you want to play, or you improvise something. That doesn't matter. It's just to start with something, and you hear what you play, you feel how you play, and then we can at the end come back to see if there's any change, any help, any change. So if you want, I will invite you to play something now.
Laura, are you looking for someone to unmute and play, or just for us to work?
I think mute to play is fine, because then they are not disturbed by other people. So it's just for them.
I think some of us are in studios without our instruments. So, but it looks like there are a couple instruments in the room. So very good.
Okay. And actually, for people who know by heart, who can memorize a phrase, a musical phrase, they can try to imagine that phrase, do some exercise, and to hear again innerly to see if there's the inner image is clear. That's another possibility. From what I see, I think everyone has finished, yes? Then you just unmute and we go further. Okay, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. So then we will do some exercise. The first one is without instrument. So directly with hands. We do those kind of exercise because then we are free of worry about if what we play wrong, right note, if it's right, wrong rhythm, if the sound is beautiful or not. So then we just do with our hands. The first one, I will show you a little bit. So you bend your elbows, and your elbows are close to your trunk. And your hands are oriented forward. Yeah. And you put your 4 fingers together, these 4 together for both hands. And you will open up the space between the thumb and the second finger. You can feel there's a slight stretch in this area. If you feel a slight stretch, that's good. Not too strong. And you just breathe 2-3 times in this position. Okay, release. And next time you keep this position, and you will move the index finger too. Then this time you will feel a little bit stretch here and here. The same, 2-3 breaths. Rest, release. And when you come back again, we always keep the separation between the thumb and the index finger. But this time we'll make a unit, the second finger third, and another unit fourth and fifth. So we will arrive like this. Normally it's more in this plane, it's not a downward. I just show you because it's easier for you to see. So now you feel the stretch here, here, and here for 2-3 breaths again. And release. The same thing with the space between fourth and fifth finger for pianists. I think for cellists it's third and fourth. Actually, it's the same fingers, just number is different. Yeah. And release when you maintain this position with 2 or 3 breaths. Release. And last one. You come back again. This time you just put your little finger away from the fourth. Two, 3 breaths. And release. Okay, that's the first exercise. So, well, I think the 6-7 years old kids can do that. Of course, I don't do that in once. I do that in many times, and I come back maybe only 1 finger or 2 for 2-3 weeks, and we do some breaks. We do something else, and I just come back to do the rest. So now the second exercise is called sliding. So actually, we usually use this part of the finger to play piano. And usually we have habitual area where we touch the piano with our fingertips. But actually the whole surface can be used. So now I would like that you, for example, play for piano, you will play 5 notes with your right hand. That is C, E, G, F, D. Do, mi, sol, fa, re. Play, so you play that on piano and you just listen how you play it right now. Yeah. And then now you try to do, okay, yeah, go. Okay, now you try to do the same thing, the same 5 notes, but every time you will consciously to play, to use the whole surface. So that will be Do, C, E. So imagine here is the keyboard. So the finger will do something like this. That's the sliding movement. And you do that with every finger, C, E, G, F, D. You just ensure that every place, forward, downward, upward, downward are used. Okay. When you finish, then you just you play again the same note. You don't think anything special. You just play. And observe how that sounds, and if there's something different or some different feeling. And if you want, you can use you can do the same thing with your left hand, but it's not necessary. It's as you want. In left hand, you can do that with C, A, F, G, and B. So symmetrical. Always sliding, sliding. So if you try that with your left hand, you start with just play those 5 notes normally, as you used to do, and then you play those 5 notes with even rhythm, but you slide every fingers consciously. And when you come back, when you finish, you can play those 5 notes again normally, and you see, you hear, you sense if you do it a little bit differently. Yeah. Okay. So now I arrive in my last exercise. The last one is what we call rolling. Actually, it's with the same part, the same fingertips, but just with the second exercise, we explore this plan, upward, downwards, or forwards, backwards if we are in position to play the piano. So now we'll explore this plan, lateral plan. As we can use every part of these fingertips, because here there's a lot of nervous ending. So usually when we sense, feel some texture, we use these fingertips to feel. So the idea is to use it to its full potentialities. So you will use the same note. We start with the right hand too, again. The same note, the same 5 notes. And this time you will play C like this, because that's the direction. If I exaggerate, that's the direction of the thumb. C. And from this plan, you will play the E. Then you turn, you roll, because you have to go to the G. And you go back to F. So a little yes, and then to finish the second. Yeah. You can play it on the keyboard or not, as you want. And once you finish, you can try it. And you can try it directly on keyboard and feel here if that adds something. And then you will do the same thing with left hand. C, A, F, G, and A. I'm sorry, Veronica.
Oh, I'm having lots of fun thinking of cool things you can do on the flute that are based on your ideas.
Okay, great.
You need it.
Yeah. Then you check on keyboard or on flute or on cello. And when you finish the whole, now you play again your piece at the beginning. The phrase or the piece, I don't know. Or improvisation, another improvisation. When you finish, you can unmute.
So these are all very interesting ideas. Can we I don't know if anybody in the room would like to talk a little bit about what it made you think of at the piano or at your other instrument. And then I would love Laura to talk a little bit about where these ideas are coming from and how you've been able to use them in your teaching. So is there anybody in the room that just on this first little exploration into these short exercises has any thoughts or questions about them? Yeah, Alice, can you unmute? Oh, you gotta unmute, Alice. Almost.
Okay.
There you are.
Right? Okay. Yeah, so I was just thinking how with very young children, you might even extend it to having them name each finger, because and get used to the tactile feeling of touching. Okay, here's your thumb. Little ones will call that the pointer, the middle of the ring. And then just to really focus on, because it's difficult for 3 and 4 year olds, particularly, even 5-year-olds, I think, to control their fingers. They're often still very malleable or bendable. So you want to get them to have that tactile awareness, you know, saying, obviously different for flute and different for all the stringed instruments, but, you know, have them go 1 and 5 together, just to get used to that. And then 1 and 4, have them count it together, because for little children, they often love to count. Have them count it up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then backwards, just before they can get into the finer exercises, just so that they're aware and they do like to count. And then, so using that tactile, and then that helps them, I think, to round their hand when they play the piano between the thumb and the pinky, and even play little games for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, having them, I think we've all liked the elevator game, in which they go up and then they go down the floors, to get used to that. So I just thought that could complement what Lara has introduced there.
Yep. Very good. Any other thoughts about any of those 3 exercises?
I'm unmuting. Hi. So literally, like, touching a piano is so different than my instrument, organ. So I really appreciated all the nuance. There's work that is just a different awareness. And then when I played my piece, it's like a whole other piece. It was interesting. I did, and I know if we were in person, you would make sure we weren't experiencing pain with the initial exercise. I had some pain. I think I've been texting too much, honestly, and so my right thumb is a little compromised. So I don't know. I found pain happening with the different warm-up one.
Thank you for that. Voice to text, that's my favorite thing. Push that little button of the microphone and I'm always about the voice to text. And then the teenagers make fun of me. They look at me like I'm crazy, like I'm a super old man because I use the voice to text. So any other thoughts? You all can jump in at any point. Laura, can you talk a little bit about the origin of these exercises and how you've used them and how they've been valuable to you?
Yeah. As I mentioned, so this French pianist, Marie-Jaëlle, actually, it's not very clear if she was also a student of Liszt or she was a friend. But in any case, they have played 4 hands together. They were very good friends. And Liszt has dedicated Mephisto Waltz for Marie-Jaëlle. And the idea of Marie-Jaëlle is, she said that when she first heard Liszt playing, and she was already a very known pianist, she thought it's something totally different, very different than what she thought about music is. And so she was very intrigued. How do you say that?
Intrigued, maybe?
Oh, okay. And then she has started to do her research after the death of Liszt. as a kind of gift. And well, actually, it's still a mystery for me how she arrives to this area that we just explored. But that truth, that's when you use the full potential of this part and this part, then suddenly there's something emerging that we don't know before. And I think, well, in Dark Crows, it's usually bigger space, bigger room, and bigger movement. But actually, it's still a kind of how to use the space. And eventually how to refine one's movement in space. And the space here is very small, but it's meaningful. And so I use that for myself, for my pianist work. And I use that for almost all my kids, all my students, excuse me. So actually, Alice is right. With 3-year-old kids, I will not start with that. And this one is quite good. And Marie-Jeanne does this one too. And she does this too, for example, to invite people to close their hand on the piano. You keep this position, you go to the keyboard, and you just open up. And that's the position, kind of position for the beginning. So for actually I don't have 3-year-old students. The youngest are 6 years old. And with 6 years old, so we start the piano with something else. Of course, the keyboard range, nursery rhythms, and then maybe 3 or 4 months later on, I start with one finger, with this one. So I can do it, for example, only 3 minutes, 2 minutes for the first lesson, for the second lesson, for 3 lessons, so for 3 weeks, and rest, break. We do something else. And 1 month later on, I come back, then we do a little bit this. If it's fine, I add. Yeah. So usually at the end of the first year, they can do that. Maybe not with a lot of range, a lot of space, but they can do that. And so I think that's Daniel talk about the pen here. Yeah. So actually, if you feel the pen, you can reduce the range here. You can reduce. What I say you have to feel a little bit stretch, because some people like just like this, then they just don't try to open up at all. And this work is to help people to have more independence of each and more awareness of each finger. So you have to open up a little bit, but a little bit not big. So that can be, you can adjust the range. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's very good. And, you know, we also sometimes massage, you know,
Yeah.
I find I get little knots in here sometimes where it gets very, very tight. And so I'll sometimes sort of rub that out. This idea of the body's the first instrument. I'm really happy that Laura is here this week and we're talking about it. It's been something I've been wanting to talk more about this summer than years past. At our training center for the first time ever, I've enlisted the help of a yoga teacher who's been doing over the 3 weeks, he's doing 6 sessions. That's our first session of the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays, an 8 o'clock yoga class. And it's a pretty traditional vinyasa flow yoga setup with yoga mats, and we're all stretching, and it's not the most advanced. We're not trying to wrap our ankles around our head or anything. But the whole point of scheduling the time is to get us to be thinking about this idea of body as first instrument. And I've really felt that in the last year or so, as I've been doing a lot more yoga practice, that it just feels more and more relevant to the whole thing that we've been working on. And I really like Laura's inclusion tonight, and just in the idea that actually these are really small sensations in the body, and there's something really relevant there as well. So, and which as Laura said, is not something that is traditionally kind of discussed. So I don't know, I think we got about 12 minutes left here. Maybe we can talk a little bit about anybody's impression. I could yap for an easy 45 minutes about body as first instrument. So I'm curious if you all have thoughts. And Helen, I see that your hand is up. So maybe if you had a question or a comment, and then maybe we want to talk a little bit about a little bit more of this body's business. Helen.
Yeah, for a start, apologies for coming late, and I'll probably have to leave early. It's in the morning here and I'm in between students. I'm just dropping by.
Yeah, are you in Australia?
I'm in Australia.
No,
yeah.
we recognize. So this timing, the timing of this is partly for you. It's for the reason. So it's evening for us on the East Coast of the States. And Laura, what time is it for you?
2 o'clock a.m. So it's 2:03, something like that.
It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And
I was going to reveal that at the end. Just
oh my goodness.
Like amazing props for staying up so late to share with us.
So good of you. Thank you, Laura. And Helen, we're thrilled that you're here, and it's okay. Come late and leave early, whatever you need to do.
Sorry. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention, I've had some very good experience with body mapping. And, you know, when you're talking about the thumbs, I'm a viola player and I teach violin and viola, but I must admit, you know, having done a little bit of work with Jennifer Johnson, who wrote some wonderful books, body mapping, I was just really shocked to find out I have 3 bones in my thumb. And it's actually meant that being aware of that meant, well, actually I can do a lot more with my thumb than I realized, and it is more flexible. Just the visual idea that one has about one's own body and where the bones are, I found that really revelationary, both as a performer and as a teacher. That was a really useful thing to know, because we're not taught anatomy, at least in my generation. We were never taught anatomy as part of our music education. Yeah.
The whole notion of body mapping is rather, I don't know, to say it's common is too extreme, but it's definitely something that is discussed, and quite often at conferences or training centers, that work is included one way or another, or is something that kind of comes around. So the and for exactly those reasons, is that having some actual understanding of the mechanics is an essential way of both not hurting ourselves, it can aid in us being knowledgeable enough to not get ourselves into trouble, and then it also gives us actually like truthful pictures of how we work. Like I said to an early Alexander teacher that I worked with, I don't bend well from my back. And she said, well, actually, you don't bend from your back at all. That's not how your back is meant to work. You bend at your hips. And I was like, oh, wait, what? And I had to like go back and like rethink the whole thing, like, because I'd been trying to bend from a place that, of course, there's some motion there, but it doesn't actually, it's not the place where I would fold when I picture the gymnasts who can fold their bodies in half. They're not folding from their back, but that's somehow that's how I was raised thinking that. And of course my back hurt. And of course I can't bend, and because I'm trying to do something that's actually literally impossible. And so that whole idea, I think, Veronica, we should just make a mental note that this would be an easy series of conversations to have at the meetup, to bring in an Alexander teacher, to bring in a Feldenkrais teacher, to bring in a somebody who does body mapping, to get, even to have the yoga teacher that we've been working with. I just love this guy to death. I'm so excited to work with him these weeks. Just to get any of these attentions in, I really, the longer I've been in the practice, I mean, we've all known, if you're in the Dalcroze community, this quote, the body is the first instrument. But it's something that is deeper than just saying that. or it's deeper than just saying, well, your body. There's a lot that we can sort of dig into it. Veronica?
I want to say thank you to Lara because I think you emphasize the connection of the body, like our larger body, and then you said the second instrument is our, the piano or the flute or the cello, and then how do we actually make that connection? And I have for years been interested in the question of how do we move from your eurythmic experience to then applying it directly to the flute? And I've had many conversations with my friend Emma about how we don't do enough of that. That she goes often and teaches at Suzuki flute festivals, and she tries to have a moment where they pull out their flutes and they actually play whatever they just moved in their Dalcroze class, and how can we create some exercises or some improvisation opportunities or some, just like, we actually have to make that connection explicit. We can't assume that it will happen with the private teachers or afterwards, or that they'll have some insight. And I just really that you actually took some time to develop exercises, and you talked about the time and the space and the energy of our fingers, and it is a smaller scale, but I so often am trying to convince parents to sign up for Dalcroze, and I say, well, it takes all these small muscles to learn to play an instrument, but we're going to feel the music through our large muscles and through gross motor movement, and we're going to have this bigger experience, and it's going to be more vivid and give them stronger impressions. But like, the follow-up is then you do have to make that connection and move back into the smaller muscle groups, and I don't think I do that enough. I think I'm just like, I got them in the Dalcroze class, and now I want the parents to see like everything that they're doing with their big bodies. But how do we, it's like this hole that I'm feeling that I could spend some time and develop some exercises, maybe take what you did for the piano, and there's some things we could do with the flute. There's a lot of like lip sensitivity that we have to build, and a lot of like sensitivity of air moving within us, which is totally invisible. And how do we build that sensitivity? And so it's been lovely to see your example, because I feel like I'm like, okay, cool, I can come up with 3 exercises. That's not so daunting. I can try to come up with 3. So thank you, Lara.
Very good. Leslie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that sometimes, like, students, when I did pre-college, I remember they would come to the Alexander thing at Carnegie Mellon, and they would find that what she was saying was not what their voice teacher said. And so sometimes, like, they would be like feeling like they would get in trouble if they did what she said. Like, the voice teachers would say, make the top of your lung get air, which is impossible, right? So she would point out, that's impossible. Like, you can't do that. And so they were finding themselves getting confused. So, so it's like a really unusual kind of thing where we want them to know, and then like their teacher, like my teacher, didn't want to hear a word about Dalcroze. He was like, when I said something, he said, she's not the piano teacher, so, and I was like, I'm gonna keep my mouth closed. And it took me many years to actually make the best connection between my Dalcroze work and the piano. Like, I actually had a playing injury, and during that time, the person was not a Dalcroze person, but he was like this robotics genius about how our bodies work. And then I was able to put, like, I was like 40 something, and I finally put it together, because nobody was putting it together, and it's a really important thing, this awareness and how our bodies actually work. And then the music teacher saying silly things like fill half your lung or something. Like, nobody can do that. Like, that's not possible, right? And then the teacher's like getting upset because they're saying what the Alexander teacher said. There's some kind of thing that we have to, this is a huge topic, but getting people who do the music teaching more into the awareness.
Yeah, my experience is, 30 years ago, the teachers that I were working with seemed quite different than the many, I'm sure not all, but many of the contemporary teachers that I'm around now. And it seems that, now we do have a yoga studio on every corner. And now to say Dalcroze, or to say Feldenkrais, or to say Alexander Technique, or to talk about, all these different things, it's not nearly as fringy as I believe it felt, some time ago. And I've really felt more support recently, just in general, more willingness, to entertain the kinds of things that we do, than oh, sorry for the puppies. Then at some points in the future, I mean, in the past, the idea of, for instance, just the body mapping, which Feldenkrais and Alexander technique both sort of are complementary to that particular idea, that can you just kind of know what's where and how do things work, just getting that basic anatomy, but anatomy and motion down, I think is really appreciated these days. And so many of the studio teachers, at least that I'm around, seem like if they're not talking about the specific anatomy, they're really happy to hear about it, as opposed to an era when it was all just very abstract general visualizations, like just the most abstract. Now there's more, I feel like it's much more understood now. Well, we've got just like 2 minutes. So has anybody got another to throw in?
I was thinking of when Stephen was listing all of these different body mapping or Feldenkrais or Alexander, and then Leslie, you mentioned the like filling your lung halfway or at the top. It reminded me that there's an approach to singing and using your voice called the Estill voice method.
Yep.
And that one is also very adamant about letting go of the poetry and being very precise about what is actually happening. And I know someone who just started working for Integral Steps, and he's like an Estill teacher, so I think we could definitely get him to come in.
Yeah, I got an Estill teacher in Pittsburgh too.
Awesome.
It's yep.
Great. So yeah, we should.
What is?
Can you explain what that is? Estill and still?
Yeah, you'll have to look it up. It's
How do you
great.
spell it?
I believe it's ESTIL. I bet Veronica's already on it. We'll give you a link here in the thing. But if you're into voice, it's a very anatomy specific, there you go, method, and I think more and more respected. There's a lot of it's one of these things that's kind of turned a lot of voice teaching on its head. And so if you got room in your life to kind of dig into a completely different direction, but I know quite a few very talented singers who grew up in a more traditional sort of pedagogy and have jumped over and are like, no, this is the stuff. It's a really interesting practice, or just way of learning about what the voice can do. Really interesting stuff. Well, friends, as always, there's more here to talk about than we have time for. And I'm really pleased with how this went. Thank you so much to Laura, who's up at 2 o'clock in the morning to share with us. That's above and beyond. And thanks to all of you for jumping in and for being a part. Veronica, did we know off the top? Well, the next thing is Stephen's masterclass on Saturday. So Saturday here in the States, maybe it's Sunday for you if you're on the other side of the globe. The time is 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And if you subscribe to the VDM calendar, it'll publish the exact time in your time zone for you. And so you'll never have to wonder what time everything is. Yep.
Next meetup is on Monday, August 15th in the evening, or if you're in Asia and Australia, it's Tuesday, August 16th in the morning for you. And we are going to be talking about teaching Dalcroze in language immersion programs. So we have someone coming to talk about like a French immersion school where she was teaching Dalcroze in French to help children understand. These are in America. So Lara, I know your kids all speak French, but and I think we have someone else coming to talk about a different language. So I think that's going to be our little niche topic, and we'll talk about the possibilities of that. And then we'll try to get some of these body-centered folks to come and come to our September and October meetups.
Very good. Thank you.
Very good. So nice seeing everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
We'll
Bye-bye.
talk to you soon.